Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Aussie writers and other creatives.
Hello, and I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content writer as well, and Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we're bringing you all kinds of tips, ideas, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
Hi Lynne, how are things going?
Hi Rach, I'm good. I've been busy because there's not a lot to do in lockdown except for work. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's the same with me actually. But we have a great new guest on the podcast this week, Belinda Weaver. I'm sure many of our listeners will know her name and her voice, as she was the co-host along with Kate Toon on Hot Copy for many years.
I know. I learned so much from that podcast. It's fantastic, particularly as I hadn't done a lot of copywriting until recently, and I learned so much about copywriting there, and it's fantastic.
Me too. I know you were saying before we started the podcast that you still dip in and out of Hot Copy, and I do as well. It's just such a great podcast. So I'm really, really excited to chat to Belinda, and let's get her on after a quick bio, which I'm going to read. Belinda Weaver helps people write copy that makes them money. Whether it's teaching copywriters how to run successful businesses or business owners how to write more effective copy, Belinda has courses, coaching and mentoring that builds skills and confidence. Belinda's an Aussie living in California with her pug, 2 daughters and husband, listed in order of neediness. I love that. She's obsessed with Doctor Who, English murder mysteries and making the perfect lemon curd. Welcome, Belinda. So great to have you on.
Hello, Lynne. Hello, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
It is so great, Belinda, to have you on the Content Bite. We're really thrilled. There's so much to talk about. We've got a whole long list.
A very long list.
But maybe we can start with your career trajectory. Didn't you actually start out as a computer programmer before moving into copywriting?
Yes, that's right. I did IT out of university and then was a computer programmer at a bank, Suncorp Metway, in the mainframe computer support department for many years. And it took me a while to actually figure out that that was just not the right career for me. And I always had one eye on the marketing department, you know, watching them go off for golf days and fun days and all these kind of sponsorship things that like GE used to do. And I was like, that's where the fun is. And so what I did is I went back and got my master's in marketing. And then I was looking for marketing work. So that was the big first career change. And I feel like a lot of us have these kind of really big shifts in our careers these days. So that was the first big one. And then the second one was when I discovered copywriting. Mm-hmm. And that's when I left the world of full-time marketing behind and became a copywriting freelancer.
Wow. So talk us through, you know, the moment, were you doing sort of bits and pieces of copywriting when you were in marketing, or did you have like a real epiphany and think this is such a good fit for me? How did it all start and how did you start getting clients?
Well, like many copywriters, I was writing copy, but I didn't know it was copy. I didn't even know it was a thing. I was in marketing, and so I was working with a company and I had to create their brochures and their flyers, and I had to do all that kind of stuff to support the sales team. And I was updating the website, and then I went to a sales day conference-y kind of things, and there was a copywriter speaking. And so I said, I want to come along because she's going to be talking about headline formulas. And I need to know this kind of stuff. And at the end of her presentation, she talked about a course that she had. And she talked about becoming a freelance copywriter. And this course showed you how to send invoices and stuff like that. And I remember that moment really clearly because it really was a lightning bolt for me. And I don't remember the rest of the day. I was like, I can't believe this part of my job that I actually like the most and I'm most interested in could be its own thing. And so what I actually did is I got my boss to pay for the course, saying I need this for my professional development. And I did it while I was at work. And because I was in marketing, I was writing copy all the time. So I got to practice, and I call it learning while you're earning. I got to learn while I earned. And then within about 6 months of doing that, I decided I was ready. So I set up my business on my lunch break. And that's when the process of starting to get clients happened. And so I did that a few ways. I started social media profiles wasn't quite so hectic and intimidating back then
Yes.
in the year 2010.
Mm.
And so simply by sharing some tips and stuff like that, starting to talk to people and introducing myself to people, networking as we call it, I got some work. And I was also part of a very small mentoring group, and I got a few leads from there. And just those couple of things together built up my confidence and my marketing processes. And so then within 6 months, my side gig salary was pretty much matching my full-time salary. It wasn't a very high paid marketing job, but then I was like, right, now I can ditch the full-time work and go all in, because now if I can get leads part-time, then if I have more time, I can get more clients.
Yep. Learn while you earn. I love that. That's what
Yeah.
I did too. Yeah. It's a smart way to do it, I suppose, with a foot in two camps before you take the leap.
Well, I know some people as well, they need that, like, I need the pressure of having to hustle a little bit to motivate me. I like the safety net. I like to know it's absolutely going to work. And so I had 3 months salary saved. I had my marketing processes working. So I was like, right, I know this is not a matter of if now, it's how.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm.
that makes sense. And it's interesting you talk about the course that made a difference for you, because you now do courses, don't you?
I do.
How long were you working as a copywriter before you started thinking about teaching courses, and how did they come about?
Well, it was about 4 years just working one-on-one with clients. That's all I did. And the course actually came about when I moved from Australia to the US. And so my husband got a job offer. We thought, why not? This is, I said, I don't need to quit a job and find a job. I'll just move my laptop. But working in a different time zone, because my client base was all in Australia.
Yeah.
And with a newborn, my first child, it was a little stressful. And the reason I started the business, was to technically have this family-friendly career.
Yep.
And I was working in the evenings. I was exhausted. I was getting up early. I was working in nap times. So I was feeling guilty when I was working because I wasn't with my baby. And then when I was with my baby, I was constantly thinking about work. And I thought, well, something's got to change here, because this is not fun. And that's when a business coach I was working with said, aren't you going into other groups doing little courses and sessions with them? I said, yeah, and I love it. She said, well, you need to create your own course. And that was the push I needed to connect the dots to something I really, really love doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put up a waitlist page. People joined the waitlist, and I was like, oh, crap, now I've got to create it. And that's how it started.
Wow. So talk us through some of the courses that you offer.
So my main course, which you might call my signature course, is the Copywriting Masterclass. Next year, I'm actually renaming it to be the Copywriting Incubator, because it's a really foundational course in the basics of copywriting. And so I love this idea of it being an incubator where things begin. And then I also have Confident Copywriting, which is my coaching membership. And last year, I launched a course called Everyday Copy, which was a copywriting course for business owners. And so that's still quite new. My main focus is helping copywriters set their baseline.
Yep.
And then build on that from there.
Wow. Do you still juggle client work, or have you given client work up? I was wondering if you had to plug it in the gaps between launches and that sort of thing.
I did for quite a few years. And so part of that was being afraid, I'm going to call it out, to let go of the thing that I had been doing before and go all in on courses and coaching. But I had to make that decision, because plugging in client work around launches and kids, again, it was getting too stressful. And so I had to ask myself, what do I love doing? What's bringing me revenue? And what do I need to let go of? And so after another couple of years, I finally let go of one-on-one client work. Now I'm in a position where if a conversation happens and it's work that I genuinely want to do and I'm excited by, I'll make it work. But otherwise, I pass leads on to my coaching membership.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting to go from a copywriter to a teacher. Did you ever think that you would prefer that over actually writing copy yourself?
Not at all. And it's just how things have evolved. Like, I've never been someone who goes, I have a very linear path and this is exactly what I'm doing. which is not quite true. I have for some things, but I found with business development, it's just kind of evolved. So when people have said, can you do this? I've gone, yeah, sure. And it's turned into something. And that's very much how it worked. But it's taken some kind of key questions to look at what I love doing, what fulfills me, where I have the most impact. And that's where I'm going. What surprises me now is how much impact I'm able to have, because I didn't start this to go, I want to change the world. We all have that maybe as our why. I want to have a meaningful impact. No, I wanted to help people. Sure. I wanted to make enough money to have my business survive, and I wanted to enjoy my work. But now when I hear people genuinely having life-changing moments and me being a part of that, it's incredible. It's very addictive, but it's added a beautiful layer of meaning to work that I genuinely enjoy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There's a lot of freelancers who are doing courses these days, and the landscape is quite different now. So especially there's a lot of dedicated course platforms, aren't there? What would you like to have known back then that you do now about running courses?
Well, what I did, there's been a growing trend for content creators and service providers. It's you get to the point where you can't just swap hours for dollars.
Yeah.
And that's when group offerings start to make sense. So it's a natural progression, but obviously 2020 really accelerated that, as a lot of service providers couldn't work with their clients anymore. One thing I did when I first created my course is I thought, I'm just going to teach people everything I can possibly jam in. And that is not what I do again. What's much more important these days, and what I've learned over years of running a course, is that yes, you have to give people information, but you also have to, in many cases, train them how to learn, and also empower and encourage them to learn. And that's partly additional layers of information to the content itself, but it's also how you present the content. So over the years, I've learned to break content down into smaller chunks, offer it in a variety of different media. So it's not just a PDF, and it's not just video. It's now video and audio and PDFs. But I've also had, and I've had some of these from the get-go, worksheets to help people practice. So there's an interactive element. I've always had the community. So I've always had the little pieces, but basically in the beginning, I flooded people with information. Now I'm much more dialed in to the experience and the encouragement needed to complete a course, because mine's a 12-week course. And I could have made it shorter and I could have made it cheaper, but I want people to have the best possible foundation. So that's just become part of my messaging and marketing, but it's that whole social experience, community experience, behavioral, social kind of levels of the course experience that I was not aware of in the beginning. And, we look at course completion rates now, and they can be as low as 4%. For mine, they're usually about 50 or 60%.
Yep.
And people will pay and never do the work, but that's not what I want for people. I want people to get absolute best return on their investment.
And it sounds like in order to do that, and in order to keep people engaged and keep them rolling in the process, you have to be there. And that was kind of going to be my next question. Could you do a course without that interactive element, without you plugged into it, and just have it this evergreen thing that rolls on that people buy and do? But I know that that's not really the trend these days. There seems to be, it has to be a community attached, and it has to be these coaching calls and all of that. Do you agree that you need that for a successful course?
You don't, because there are people making squadrillions out of evergreen courses. So it's not like there's only one model that works, but I feel evergreen courses and more coaching programs are different products. And so you just need to craft them differently. And I think the most important thing is setting expectations. And so with an evergreen model, you just have to make sure that people have the right expectations of what the course and the content and the interaction will be. And then people will choose the products that suit them and their style. But I think having the social element and the support helps people move through things with a greater completion rate. Is it compulsory? No, absolutely not.
I think you're right. Actually, one thing that does resonate is that so much of learning new skills is about having that confidence. And so that interactive sort of community-based sort of learning is really good, because certainly when I do some coaching and mentoring, so much of it, I reckon at least 50% of what I do is about making people feel confident about themselves and having the courage to stretch themselves, take them out of their comfort zone. Do you think that's right?
Absolutely. And it's a big part of what I'm layering in with mine, where I talk about when people hit a bit of a funk and how to stay motivated to keep going through the course content, how to manage their time, how to fit the learning in around their work, and also for me, how they will feel as they learn new skills. I talk about building muscles. And so from the very first lesson and the very first call, I'm talking to copywriters about how they're learning something new. They need to be kind to themselves. They are going to suck and it's going to be hard, but they are building up muscles just like they might do with exercise.
Yeah.
And it's really important to frame that so that when people go, this is difficult and I'm not getting it, am I not smart enough? I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with you. You are learning something new. Give yourself some grace and space to do that. So yes, it's absolutely a part of that. And I think with the evergreen model, that's a consideration you have to build into how you deliver the course, is how you can keep people motivated in the right framework to keep progressing with the journey. And that's where the human, brain psychology, how we learn and things like that, that's what I didn't really consider when I first started a course. And I'm much more dialed into that now, how people feel, how people are working, what they need to stay motivated and empowered to keep on going.
That's fascinating. You don't think about all the psychology that goes into it, but it absolutely does.
Absolutely. And it's, the people, I say to people, when you keep showing up, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm there to help you. But it's the people who finish the course who have the careers that change.
Yes.
If you're looking around at copywriters thinking, that's what I want, then you need to put your bum in the chair, you need to show up, and you need to do the work. And it's a funny little thing I have as part of my messaging, that if you can't adult through a 12-week course, then you might not find it easy to adult, to find clients, do your marketing, do your books, all those kind of things. So I very much set it up as this is a training ground.
Yeah.
To keep showing up and doing the work. But I'm here and I've got you, and it's my job to help you keep moving forward.
I know we're going to move on to some of the other aspects of copywriting, but just before we do that, I just wanted to stay on courses for 1 second, talk to you a bit about the technology that you use, the platforms you've chosen and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so currently my website is on a closed platform, but I'm actually shifting to be on a WordPress site. So there you can have platforms like Kajabi, Learnable, Teachable. There's lots of different course platforms, which means people have lots of different choice, which can make it really difficult then, because you have that paralysis of like, what kind of tech do I need? And so my content is all on my website. And one of the things I would say to people listening is you have a lot of choices from not very expensive to really expensive. So the questions become, how much do you want to have to support the tech yourself? And if the answer is not at all, then platforms like Kajabi and things like that can be great, because they've basically done all the hard work for you and they take care of the tech. But to be honest, a course can be as simple as recording a video with some half decent sound and sending it out by email. And I think that the paralysis of the tech is a real thing that will keep people stuck, but it's just a really good reason to stay stuck. It shouldn't stop you, because great courses, as I said, could be an audio course that you record and send out by email, or videos you do on your phone that you send out by email. You don't need hundreds of bells of whistles and gamification and, badges and all this kind of stuff in order to share your expertise with the world. And that's when this kind of minimum viable product comes in. What do you absolutely need to share the information? Then you can build it up in layers in terms of gamifications, communities, forums, and all those kind of things.
Fantastic.
Wow. So much information. Fantastic. My head's sort of spinning and I'm thinking a lot.
But maybe we can switch gears for a sec and talk about some of the things you do teach other copywriters, because I know that you're very big on helping copywriters command higher rates. Do you want to tell us your tips about that? Because I think that's something that people would be really interested in.
Absolutely. I want to start by saying the whole idea of commanding higher rates is I'm very anti-hustle culture. So I don't teach copywriters how to earn more so that they can meet industry vanity standards of revenue. My strong point in confident copywriting is earn more so you can work less. That's the point of it. So I just wanted to from that, because one of the things copywriters often get into the industry for is more freedom, more choice, more time, and more fulfillment. And then they get into the industry and it's all of a sudden about having 10K months and having a 6-figure business. And it can be really toxic to your self-confidence and the joy in your life. But when it comes to earning more, I think copywriters absolutely, it needs to come from a place of confidence. And so when you feel confident, or when the copywriters I help feel most confident, they can charge high rates and really own that metric of their project price. And they can earn more than they've ever earned before because they feel confident. But feeling confident doesn't come from the universe. Feeling confident comes from having really solid skills in your craft. That means investing in your learning and not just writing on instinct. It means having really strong processes and systems within your business so that you're not carrying stuff around in your head, because that's when your service delivery becomes random and chaotic. So it means having strong service delivery systems and processes. And it also means targeting the right kind of clients and projects. So if you're not getting a lot of yeses on the kind of rates that you want to charge, then you're talking to the wrong kind of people. And there are always clients out there who will pay more. So you have to think about the type of clients you're talking to and the type of projects you're working on. So if you're doing small projects, you're not likely to earn big. You need to shift gears into the kind of projects that clients will pay big money for. And they're the kind of projects that are closer to them earning money. And so you have to have if you want to start writing sales pages that have 6-figure launches for your clients, you need to invest in your learning so that you know how to do that. And you also need to develop those systems and processes so that you're offering a 6-figure service. But the last piece of it is the mindset piece that I talk about quite a lot, because until you can get out of your own way, you will keep lowballing yourself. So the number one influence on you raising your rates is you and your head junk. And so it's a really big piece of it that a lot of people don't really pay attention to, but that's the number one impact. So there's confidence from skills, confidence from systems, confidence from talking to the right people about the right kind of projects. But the mindset piece is also a huge influence on rates.
Yeah, all of that makes so much sense to me. And I think that the more, kind of high paying clients you get, the more you get that, build that confidence. And suddenly there is this mental shift and you won't take low rates anymore. It's just, you literally cannot. So it's much easier to walk away from opportunities that aren't a good fit for you, I suppose.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And sometimes you have to borrow a little bit of confidence from your future self. And you have to get through you have to get through some awkward conversations of saying no. And what a lot of copywriters do is they worry that if they don't say yes to everyone, then there won't be more work. But while you're saying yes to everyone, there is no space and time to take on better projects. Mm-hmm. So there is an element of trust that if you are doing the marketing and you are doing good work and you are constantly nurturing your relationships and your network, then you have to trust that the work will come if you are also sending out the right signals. So there's a little bit of a leap of faith there, but it's not really, because you are also doing the work.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I know that you also like to teach people about how to write better copy faster. So give us the thumbnail version of that. What does that involve?
Oh, I'm actually doing webinars on that this weekend. And this is something that I don't go hard on my copywriters, but I've said you always have to say you have to pay attention to how long you're taking to write, because you cannot take as long as it takes. You cannot wait for inspiration, and you cannot take as long as it takes to write, because that's when you spend 5 hours and you've only quoted 2.
Yeah.
And that's when your hourly rate goes lower than a Macca's worker. So the key is you need to map out your time before you write. So if you have quoted 10 hours for a project, you have to sit down and say, well, how long am I going to spend at project admin? How long am I going to spend on research? How long am I going to spend writing and doing revisions? And how long is left over for proofreading? And then all of a sudden you realize that 10 hours you quoted actually only has 5 hours for writing and revisions, which is then really only 3 hours for writing. And so you have to break this project up to help you focus on how long have you got to get this done? Because time constraints just force you, any kind of constraints actually, but we're usually under time constraints, force you to be more awesome in less time. You can absolutely do the work of 5 hours that you did in 5 hours in 3 hours, once you're aware of the time. Now, the next step of that is mapping out your writing. And so a lot of people just open up a document, start at the top, and just let it all kind of plop out in this big stream of consciousness, thinking, oh, I'll just edit it later. It's fine. But to really make your writing more efficient, you can use formulas and frameworks to give the page structure. For example, pain, agitate, solve, outcome. All right, well, I'm going to talk about the pains and challenges in this part of the copy. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more, and then I'm going to start introducing a solution. And I'm going to do that at a high level and then more detailed, and then I'm going to make an offer. Then I'm going to talk about an outcome. All of a sudden, your page has structure. Then you can start popping bullet points into the page. And then you start writing. And what that means is, because you've done all that prep work, the writing phase actually doesn't take very long. And the reason you do it in bullets first is it's much easier to move bullets around than it is to unpick stellar copy that's in a huge long paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a mindset thing. Once you write it, you've poured your heart and soul into the copy. We don't like to admit it, but it's very hard for us to let go of good writing and bad writing and great writing. And so that's when it starts to become time consuming, because we have to unpick it all in the editing phases. So it's mapping out your writing before you start and being very clear on how long you are willing to spend, because you need to let go of perfection and hand it over to the client.
Yep.
Wow.
I do love that structure idea. That's great. I do sort of things like that when I, plan out a feature. So it's so useful, isn't it? And it does save a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is with that is you never have to start at the top. Start at the middle. Start with the things you know. Start with your favorite bits. I often start in the middle of my copy and I write out, because the introduction and the headline and the call to action and the offer, they're the really important bits.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I start in the middle, in the squishy zone, because I'm comfortable there, and then I warm up and then I write out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Actually, I do something similar. Yeah. So many of our listeners are former journalists or content writers, and they're transitioning into copywriting after years, particularly on magazines and newspapers. What's your advice to them?
I would say definitely embrace your experience. I find that copywriters often come from either marketing or journalism. You can usually pick the copywriters who have come from journalism or marketing. So I would say embrace your experience, because it, of course, will be useful, but also invest in learning the craft of copywriting, because it is different. But there are things that journalists can do really well, like voice of customer interviews, that other copywriters aren't so good at. So journalists can really bring a lot. But I find that journalists also bring a lot of rigid structure that doesn't quite work in a persuasive sales piece. So it is a slightly different craft that you can absolutely suckle your experience in, but appreciate that it is different and invest in learning your craft. And I would also say, and anyone looking to become a copywriter, join a community. There's free and paid communities, tons of free communities of copywriters, And that is where you can get some amazing encouragement, support, and advice so that you don't have to figure it all out on your own.
Yep.
Another sort of question for the journos who might be listening. I know this is a how long is a piece of string question, but what skills do you think clients really want from copywriters these days? If you were going to choose, where you sort of start learning.
It's absolutely great copy, but clients don't necessarily know the difference between good copy, great copy, and excellent copy. And that's okay, because that's why they hire a copywriter. So there's absolutely the craft of the copy. Nowadays, what's interesting is there are added layers to the service provision of copywriting that weren't there when I started out, like voice of customer interviews. And that's where you interview customers and potential customers to collect their phrasing, their wording, their pains, their challenges, their dreams. And we just didn't do that when I got started, but it's a really great layer of a service provision that more and more copywriters are doing, which is where journos can really differentiate themselves. But it's the experience of working with clients that creates differentiators, word of mouth, memorability as a service provider. And that means setting expectations. What do they get? What don't they get? When things will happen? What's the responsibility of the copywriter? What's the responsibility of the client? And that's really important to do from the get-go, because dissatisfaction when it comes to customer service has usually come back to differing expectations. So when you set the expectations and you lead the project, that's when you start to have really satisfied customers. And then the extra layer to that is delight. How can you go just a little bit further? How can you do something unexpected and delightful that has clients going, oh, that was amazing? So it's solid writing, but it's all the experience of the service provision and how easy it is for clients. That's what will really make the difference and help you start charging more.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm.
I know some copywriters specializes in things like about pages or email sequences or SEO. Do you need to niche down, or are these hard things to learn, or?
I think a lot of copywriters have a bit of a panic because they're like, everyone keeps telling us to niche down and I don't know what to niche in. And so I would say when you're getting started, if you don't have an obvious niche, because you can niche by industry, I do health and wellness, or I do software as a service, or you can niche by project type. I write emails, I write conversion copy, I do, SEO copy. So there are different ways you can niche. You can also niche in the tone of voice style. I write personality driven copy, right? So there's lots of different ways you can niche, but I personally believe you have to try a lot of things and see what stands out to you. And so, one of the things I do is I like to remind copywriters to set a solid foundation in your craft and then try a lot of things and then build on that. And that's when you might go, oh, okay, now I've discovered that I love writing emails for e-commerce businesses. So now I'm going to do a course or a program that helps me become a specialist. And you can do that with conversion copy, email copy, SEO copy, all these kind of things. But if you don't know the basics, then you're building on shaky ground. But do you need to niche? I was a generalist for 7 years and I did okay. So there's no need to panic about it. If a niche pops out at you, start investing in building those skills and letting go of the other things.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, I know from chatting to you before when we were on Zoom a few months ago, we both have young kids and we both have had to work around them a lot more than usual during the pandemic because you've obviously been based in the US and homeschooling as well.
Yeah.
So how do you get any work done? How do you get into that deep flow where you can actually get work done? Do you have any tips for the parents who may be listening?
Well, firstly, it's that idea of getting in the deep flow. I don't get in the deep flow. It's very hard for me to do that. And so things that I need to have that deep sense of focus, I need to be very clear about when I can do that. So for me, it starts in the morning. I spend the first hour of my day before my children get up. I do a little bit of self-care, I meditate and I journal, and I have a hot cup of tea all the way to the bottom without anyone asking me for snacks or clothes or conflict resolution. And that's a really important time for me. And so for the parents listening, you need to have time for yourself. And so it's very easy for us to work in, and I heard this phrase and I use it all the time now, time confetti. We have these tiny little splices and windows of time that we have to fit a lot of things in. And very often we neglect ourselves because we do the family stuff, and then we fit work in around that. And then we're left with nothing. And that's when we go to bed too late. We don't sleep well. We're not eating well. We're not looking after our bodies. We're not doing things that are fun. Oh my God, fun, right? Always left to the bottom of the list. And so that really became something obvious to me in 2020 when I was like, okay, I don't think anyone had a lot of fun, but I'm not allowing time for me to do something that I want to do just for me. And so I did a lot of changes to my routine. But that morning piece is where it begins for me. What I actually do is I map out my day. And so it's this thing about writing faster. I get very clear about when in the day I can work. Like when I'm doing drop-offs, when I'm doing pickups, what's the time left in between? Am I supporting distance learning? Are the kids together and can they play? And then what I have to do is map out the kind of work I'm going to do in those work zones. And so I'm not trying to do deep thought work while I'm also supporting my first grader, because it's not going to happen. But I'm also not planning 7 hours of tasks when I realistically only have 2 hours of work time. And so that is the biggest thing. I think map out your day and get clear on when you can work and what kind of work you can do in those zones. Be realistic about what you put on your list, because if you keep jacking your list up with 3 days of work, you will end each day going, I'm so far behind. And that just exacerbates the feeling of stress that we have.
Yep.
And the last thing is be kind to yourself. Make time for yourself and be kind to yourself as well, because we're all just doing our best. And often we look at other people on Instagram and Facebook going, oh my God, they've got 5 kids. How are they doing that? We don't know what's happening behind the scenes, what help they have, maybe what a shit show it is behind the scenes. We don't know. And so we can't judge ourselves on how we're living our lives and how we're managing based on the Instagram feed.
Yeah. I love that. Again, bringing in that idea of mapping out your day. I definitely map out my week, but I don't drill down and map my day out a lot of the time. And I think that is really important, because you do put yourself at the bottom of the pile constantly. And then you are sitting up like I am at the moment at 11:30 watching my 4th episode of Younger, because I haven't had any time to do anything for myself. And then you're exhausted and you're sick, which everyone can probably hear in my voice. It's so true.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it really has changed thinking about how much time I realistically have, and then looking at how long I'm going to spend on each task really has changed the way I end my day. And I love going into the kitchen and going, ticked everything off my list today. Yeah, sure. There was 2 things on there, but I got them done. And that's how I want to feel at the end of the day, rather than I'm behind. What did I even do with my time? I must be terrible at this because I can't even get this done. I like to end the day going, ticked everything off. I'm having a margarita.
Yeah.
It is quite all about realistic expectations, isn't it? And I like your idea. I'm similar, that I do all my self-care in the morning, all my exercise and stuff. So no matter what happens, by 9 o'clock, I've at least done something really nice for myself. And as you say, even if it's a cup of tea or a coffee or something really nice that you just think,
absolutely,
that's just for you. Yeah, it's really important.
Well, look, Belinda, we could talk to you all day long, but I know this has been one of our longest episodes. So we're going to start to wrap it up. But I just wanted to ask you, what's next for you? Is there anything new on the horizon? Is there a new podcast following hot on the heels of Hot Copy?
Copy, yes. Well, Kate and I aren't doing Hot Copy anymore. But for anyone listening, we're maintaining the website and keeping the episodes there. So, you can always dig in. I am creating a new podcast, just me. I have no launch date or anything like that. But I'm going to be talking more about what it's like to run a business that is strong on revenue, but also strong on time and choice and freedom and fulfillment. And what does that look like? And how do we do it? How do we develop a business that ticks all the boxes and that lets us enjoy the journey of work? Because this is, I'm not speaking from a place of experience. I'm learning this too. So I want to talk to other people about how they do it. But otherwise, I'm opening my copywriting course on July 8th to the 13th, and that will run. And I have my coaching membership, Confident Copywriting, which happens all the time. So for me, it's just about supporting copywriters in the challenges that they're having right now in my various communities, which will take me all the way up to Christmas. I can't believe I'm talking about Christmas already, and it's only just started July. And then we're in the new year, and I've already started mapping out things for 2020.
Wow. You're a powerhouse.
Wow. Wow. So much value, Belinda. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and we could talk to you all day, and thank you so much for sharing your listeners. And I'm sure that we'll have a few of our listeners signing up for your course, because I think it's been very inspiring chatting with you today.
I appreciate it.
Yes. On that note, please tell us where people can find you and follow you if they're not already following you.
Oh, thanks. Copyrightmatters.com. So my business, I'm Belinda Weaver, and my business is Copyright Matters, and my website is copyrightmatters.com. And of course, that's right with a W.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not doing trademarking. And I have a free Facebook group called For the Love of Copy, and I do monthly training sessions in there, and AMA, Ask Me Anything. So that's a nice, if people are sort of like, what's she all about? There's tons of content on my website. And if you join the free Facebook group, we can hang out a little bit.
Yeah.
And just bag loads of free stuff, really.
Fantastic. And we'll put all those contact details in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
So if you happen to be on your walk, doing a bit of self-care while you're listening to this, you can get back to it and download everything from there.
Yeah.
That's the end of our show this week. Thank you so much, Belinda. And thank you to everyone listening and sharing. Every week we're going from strength to strength. So it's fantastic. And we're really thrilled to have so many new listeners. So don't forget to leave a rating or review on the show, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, we will. Thanks again, Belinda, and see you, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.